What is up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another Ioki Tuber. Today we're going to be giving you guys the patch notes and tier list for the new patch 14.7. Just dropped today if you guys are watching this on the day that it came out. And yeah, we've got some absolute massive shakeups in the support meta. I'm going to be going through the patch notes really fast just because I think it's important to get an overview. But if this is your first time watching the channel, my name is Ioki. I'm a multi-season, high elo support content creator. I play every single type of champion, from on-meta to enchanter to off-meta to tank to engage to assassin, everything. I play it. So if it's your first time watching the video, yeah, welcome to the channel. But yeah, so we've got, here's the overview, the nerfs. The rail nerf is not real. That's just, they're just nerfing her in the jungle, basically removing her capability to play jungle, which is pretty sad, but it's not really going to affect her as support. In fact, she's getting a little bit of a buff as support, as compensation. Now, one other thing I want to point out is that these Camille support nerfs, they're trying to nerf her out of the support role, because if you've been on the current couple patches, Camille support is taking over. I'm just going to say it. They're missing the mark here. This is not going to take her out of support. If anything, this is probably going to raise her win rate overall, because all they're doing is basically buffing her Q and W while nerfing her E. Well, that's operating under the assumption that every single Camille support player is maxing her E, which even if they did, oh my god, it's just 20 damage. Like, how do they think that's fixing it? But even still, I've been playing a ton of Camille support and I max Q. So yeah, Riot, you're kind of missing the mark on this one. So we're gonna go ahead and plop Camille back into S tier. And let's go over this. Let's go over the tier list. So starting all the way at the bottom, these are the D tier. In patch, in season 14, these are just the champions who just really can't find their way. They either can't find the build that they're supposed to run. They don't find their place in the meta. None of the new 5 support items really match them, or they're just completely outclassed. Now, I'm a big believer in playing whatever you want to play. So if you are a big Vex support enthusiast, unless you're trying to get onto an LCS team, obviously keep playing Vex support. It's super fun, right? But as far as like, this tier list is kind of catered towards people who want to climb, who want to play the absolute best of the best. I just don't really even think it's worth going over any of these champs. They're outclassed. You're definitely hurting your climb by playing these champs. So let's move on into the C tier, which is only 3 champions. I'm a big fan of Ashe support, but she, aside from the very unique level of utility and vision control that she brings, she's just not really that good as support. Same thing with Fiddlesticks. Like, yes, he's basically a very cheese-dependent champion when played in support. So if you can't cheese them, if you can't one-shot them 100-0, you're not going to find success as this champion. And then this next one really does break my heart a little bit, because I am a huge fan of Pantheon support. But he also just kind of falls within the realm of champions who can't, like, he's very cheese dependent. And I feel like in a lot of matchups, especially because we're 1 foot into an enchanter meta, they're just going to shield themselves. You're not going to be able to one-shot them. You're going to get outclassed. So moving on into the B tier, these champions are slightly above average, and we have a lot of new champions falling into the B tier from higher tiers, most notably Senna and Pyke. They've got some massive Bloodsong nerfs, because Riot is essentially trying to kind of curb down the damage from the support role to bring it into a lot more reasonable territory. So we're going to be seeing massive damage nerfs to Zaxax's Realm Spike, which is the mage support item, and Bloodsong, which is the AD support item. So Senna and Pyke, who were previously well within high S tier, are now kind of more reasonably within the B tier. Very average champions. And yeah, I mean, you can see everyone here. I'm not going to go over all of them individually. Senna and Pyke, once again, that breaks my heart that they're not very strong right now. You can still play them and you will still climb if you are, adept and skilled with these champs, but they're definitely not like breaking the game open, especially, I mean, even on 14.6 right now, I feel like Senna and Pyke, you're kind of putting your team at a disadvantage. You're overloading your team with too much AD. You're very snowball dependent. You're very, team kind of has to play around you when you're playing Senna or Pyke. And yeah, most teams aren't going to be willing to do that. So Karma, I mentioned earlier that we have 1 foot into an enchanter meta, which we are absolutely about to be in. Like, I think even on 14.6, we're in enchanter meta. 14.7, there has to be someone on the Riot balance team that is like hardcore spamming enchanters, because oh my god, you'll see when we get to the S tier. But Karma and Seraphine are kind of the 2 champions that are the exception to that. They're just very average, middling, can't even break over 50% win rate. I just feel like there's so much better enchanters to be playing. Xerath, unless you're like an absolute scripter with this champion, he's just not really that good. There's much better mage champions to be playing in the support role. Alistar, when it comes to tank supports, he's just outclassed by champions like Leona and Taric, who we'll see later. Misfortune, once again, putting 2 marksmen in the bot lane is just kind of putting like a massive red flag over your head that says, gank me, gank me. If we're behind, I don't do anything. Nico is kind of in the same boat as Xerath. You know, if you are a talented Nico player, there's a couple challenger one-tricks still playing it as support, but other than them, I really wouldn't recommend it. Zillion, we're actually going to be bumping up to A tier. I forgot to move him. Morgana is a unique champion because she is never truly going to be anything other than average on her own. The true power of this champion is allowing the enemy team to lock in a champion that you counterpick, and then you lock in Morgana. So for instance, if they lock in a Blitzcrank or a Leona or a Thresh, that's when you get a lot of value out of locking in Morgana. I don't recommend you just queue up 100 games straight of Morgana. You're going to be, you're going to be opting into a lot of very, very unfavorable matchups. And because as a poke support, as a CC support, she's just outclassed. The most value you get out of her is by allowing the enemy team to lock in these high priority, these high power skills like Blitzcrank Hook, and then you hard counter them with Spell Shield, right? Pyke, we've already talked about. Zac, I actually forgot. You guys reminded me to put him onto this tier list from last patch, so sorry about that. Zac is actually quite good as a tank support. However, I think that most support players just kind of fail at playing this champion. They're not comfortable with him. They're first timing him. I don't know. It feels like every single time I see a Zac support, they're either picking it into counter picks like Janna, which is completely unplayable, or they're just missing everything and completely not optimizing how deadly the champion can be. They don't pick up his passive. So I think that this is one of those champions that's probably low-key, secretly OP, but is gated by how bad support players can be. Nautilus is in the exact same boat as Alistar. He's just outclassed by the other tank supports. Thresh, unfortunately, is just in a really weird spot for Season 14, where it feels like he has decent builds, but no good builds, which is crazy because it feels like in every other season, there has been a core build for Thresh. There's been a very secure place for the original infinite skill ceiling support, right? So once again, that's kind of like the name of the game for this B tier is if you're good with these champions, you will still thrive, but it's a little bit of an uphill battle. Already talked about Seraphine. She's just like Seraphine and Karma are like the 2 enchanters, also Yuumi, I guess. The 3 enchanters that got kind of left out of the cool kids club. You know, all these other enchanters are getting these huge buffs, which we'll go over later. Hui is another champion like Zac that I think is just straight up gated by how bad support players are with him. So as you can see, this win rate is very, very bad in all ranks. I think it gets a little bit, no, it actually gets lower the higher you go. If you go all the way up to Challenger, it's 49%. But I think it's just support players, you know, see someone locking in Hui in support, and they're like, oh, I can do that too. They first time Hui, this guy has 15,000 spells. You don't know what you're doing. So yeah, I genuinely think Hui is probably slightly better, maybe like a low A tier pick, but he is gated by the fact that a lot of support players suck. I mean, it is what it is. So A tier, these champions are very good on the current patch, all for different reasons. And we've seen a lot of changes in the A and S tiers, so make sure to watch the entire video to get through this. Shin is someone who I was 100% sleeping on the true potential of as a support. I believe I had him all the way down in D tier, maybe low C tier, but I recently did a coaching session with Xpetu, who kind of opened my eyes to how good Shin can be. And he hasn't gotten any nerfs or buffs in a long time, but he has steadily been raising and climbing in win rate. So I think it's just one of those champs that is like, as the season's chaotic beginnings, you know, the chaos of early season is kind of like wearing off. People are understanding the game a little bit more. So champions that have really good control over macro level gameplay like Shin are going to thrive a little bit more. Rel, again, she secretly got buffed as a support a little bit. It's not going to be like a crazy buff. But yeah, Rel is very, very high agency champion. She is very, very tanky. I would go as far to say that she is the only real tank support in the entire game, because she doesn't really do a whole lot of damage, whereas Leona is pretty tanky and does a ton of damage for a tank. Maokai is pretty tanky and does a ton of damage as a tank. Shin is pretty tanky, does a ton of damage. Rel is very tanky and does almost no damage. So if your team has plenty of damage and they genuinely just need someone to be their go button and be a true frontline to just soak every single ability, Rel is one of the best champs in the game for that. Now, Brand is going to be hurt a little bit by the Zac Realm Spike nerfs. I don't think it's going to be enough to, completely remove him out of the support role or anything like that. And I think he is slightly propped up by the fact that if you lock in Brand early in the draft, his most popular and successful role right now is actually in jungle. He is an S+ tier jungler right now. So there's a little bit of value in draft when it comes to that. Like, you lock in a champion that has played in multiple roles, and the enemy team doesn't really know what role you're locking him in for. It's very good for mind games because they might end up accidentally counterpicking themselves. Rakan is kind of like Morgana, where I don't think he will ever be truly S+ tier, but he is always good. I was playing Rakan earlier, making a video, and the way I explained it is if you already have a solid team comp, Rakan is the perfect all-rounder to round out your team comp. If you already have strong engage to follow up on, Rakan is the best secondary engage in the team. If you don't need insane peeling, you've already got a little bit of it, Rakan will enable that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he does a lot of things. He peels, he shields, he heals, he dives. But he's not the best at any of those. So he's kind of just like a lock it in if your team's already well-rounded, and he makes that well-rounded comp a little bit more well-rounded. Maokai had his time in the sun. He was an S+ tier, but he got nerfed like 7 times. And I think the nerfs are finally starting to kick in because the first 4 or 5 nerfs didn't really do anything. But this last couple of rounds, he's still good. He's just not like game-breakingly good. So Milio, other than the fact that I don't really recommend people play this champion because he is extremely low agency, and I'm a big proponent of lock-in stuff that can make plays. So I don't really think you should be playing Milio. That being said, on paper, he is quite good right now. Same with Bard. He's historically just the most overtuned champion in the entire game. Sona is getting some massive buffs. I am very bullish on the Sona buffs. However, I still think along the same lines as Milio, I just don't think that she's a great champion to climb in solo queue with because of her low agency. But she is getting damage buffs. She is getting some healing buffs, some E buffs. They are going all in on this Enchanter meta going forward. And I think that Sona maybe once people, stop counterpicking her, or once her counterpicks are not quite as strong, she might find herself in S tier next patch. But for this patch, I'm going to plop her safely in A tier, along with Soraka, who will also benefit from the lower damage output going into the game this patch. Lux, once again, is going to get hit by the Zazax. Is it Zazax? Oh my god. I always thought this was Zac Realm Spike. Why have you let me mispronounce this item for like 4 months straight? Zazax. Okay, Lux is going to get hit by the Zazax nerf. However, she is low-key pretty strong. She's got some decent utility, some amazing poke. And I don't think that this Zazax nerf is actually going to like remove her from the bot lane at all. And once again, it's kind of like a decent flex into mid lane. Teemo, still think he's very, very slept on. The Realm Spike nerf will hit him, but nothing that's going to like actually remove him in bot lane. You guys know me, guys. I'm the #1 Teemo support believer. He always counters at least one person in the bot lane, which means he is always going to be a very high value pick. He also scales very fast. Zillion, I feel like Zillion was already on this list somewhere. Do I have 2 Zillions? No? I'm seeing things. Yeah, going into Zillion and Lulu's, I think that they are above average picks, a little bit low on the agency, but again, we are going to be stepping into an Enchanter meta, which is also on the other end of the spectrum going to be shifting us into a hyper carry meta for ADCs. Because when you think about it, when the support meta shifts, the ADC meta will also shift to kind of compensate that, because champions that are good with Enchanters are going to be stronger as ADC now. So let's get into it. The absolute best of the best on the current patch. We've already talked about Camille, absolutely broken, abuse that champion. Nami is going to be getting some very nice buffs alongside with Sona. They are really doubling down with they want bot lane to do less damage and more utility. So she is losing a little bit of damage, which sucks, but overcompensated in a massive way. 15% higher AP ratio on her W heal. Higher the fall off is even less. So, your W when it bounces around is going to be healing more and damaging more. And then also looks like lower damage on E. So she will heal more and also heal more and deal less damage. But yeah, there's going to be overall a lot less damage going into bot lane. So she's going to be in a stronger position. Taric is kind of just like the guy who gets to benefit from everything. When tanks are strong, Taric is strong. When enchanters are strong, Taric is strong. So yeah, absolutely sleeper champion right now. I don't think people realize quite how strong Taric is. Look at this. Look at this. 52% win rate in all ranks. Nobody plays this champion. Why not? Poppy, I did a video on her recently. She is the #1 support in the entire game for last patch. We'll see going forward. But yeah, Zyra, absolutely insane damage. Doesn't matter about the Zaxax realms. She is, or the Zaxax nerf. She is still super, super strong. Janna, still insanely, unbelievably strong. And Blitzcrank is going to be in a unique position because all of these squishy, immobile champions that are getting stronger, like Soraka and Sona and Nami, Blitzcrank is always going to be the absolute #1 answer to those champions because whoop, he just grabbed their booty and now they're dead. It doesn't matter how much healing your Nami gets buffed. If she gets hit by a late game Blitzcrank hook, she's dead. So Blitzcrank is always going to be a more and more attractive champion as the meta shifts into enchanters. And I kind of feel the same way about Leona. She's not quite as good into enchanters because she has to play into them rather than pulling the enchanters into her team. So it's a little bit more of an uphill climb, but I am a big, big, big believer in Leona running PTA right now. PTA being press the attack. I don't even think you need Aftershock. That may change going into the next patch. I'll still be experimenting with it, so keep your eye on that. But yeah, Leona is very, very strong right now. Easily one of the top 5 supports in the game. Already talked about Nami, already talked about Camille. So there it is, guys. A little bit of a shorter patch notes than normal, but I really wanted to get you guys this information fast, not waste any of your time. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, I will be responding to every single comment on this channel or on this video down in the comment section. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. I don't really care. I'm telling you guys how it is. These champions are broken and you should play them. Take it easy, boys. Peace.